Welcome to a Songwriter Trysts with my new friend, Murray Cook. How you doing?
I'm good, Rae. How are you?
I'm good. I bet you've had 1,000,001 introductions done for you over the years, and I'm a big fan of letting the artist tell us who are you and where do you come from.
Sure. Well, I'm probably best known. Well, not probably. I'm best known for my 20 years in the Wiggles. I was a original founding member of the Wiggles, and we took that from a little cottage industry sort of hobby band to the world, and so I've been very fortunate. I think we came up with something that really resonated with lots of people, and but you never really know. I think, as I said, we were teachers and preschool teachers, and we just did an album of music for kids, and it took off, and there we are. And then,
there you go.
Yeah, well,
So many years later,
simple.
now there's a documentary out about the Wiggles and how it
yeah.
overtook the world and that incredible journey. But I want to ask you about you. How did you get into music? Where did your inspiration for music start?
Yeah, well, I've been around a long time. I was born in 1960, and so I grew up. My early years were in that sort of amazing explosion of music, which I wasn't really that aware of, because I mean, the Beatles kind of hit when I was 3 or 4, and I grew up in the country, in country New South Wales. So,
Which town are you from?
Originally from Cowra.
Okay.
And then we moved, when I was 8, we moved to Orange. Then when I was 16, we moved to Sydney. So all my family are in Sydney now. But it was that sort of childhood where we just kind of ran pretty free in the holidays, and we seemed to just be playing outside or watching TV, and we did watch a lot of TV. And that's kind of where the music came from, because the Monkees TV show started, and I watched the Monkees, and just thought, wow, this is amazing. It was, 4 crazy guys living in a house all together and playing music and playing guitars. And, I guess guitars weren't really on my radar. And then suddenly I'm thinking, wow, look at that's so cool. Playing guitar must be the coolest thing. And that's, over 50 years ago. And I still think it's the coolest thing. So I guess from there,
held it well.
Well, from there, I guess, I got into the Beatles and the Stones and stuff like that. And then in the early 70s, we were living in Orange, and a lot of the sort of Australian bands would come through town, especially Sherbet. Younger listeners might not remember Sherbet, but Daryl Braithwaite was the singer in Sherbet. And that was the first band I ever saw. Because I was Australian, I started thinking, oh, okay, so as an Australian, I could do this maybe. I was like 13. And so I'd already pestered my parents to get me a guitar, and I'd already been playing a little bit. And then I just got really obsessed, and just went and saw lots of bands, played music for years. When I moved to Sydney, I played a little bit in Orange with different people, but when I moved to Sydney, I made friends at school with some guys who played guitar, and we started a band in the late 70s when we finished. And it was a really kind of fruitful time for music in the late 70s into the 80s. There were gigs everywhere. We weren't very good, but we got lots of gigs, and you kind of learnt your craft on the job, and played lots of gigs. And I did that for many years, or about 8 years. And I worked in a public service job as well, to keep me alive. And the band did a couple of singles. We did a couple of singles for RCA, and they didn't go anywhere. And so we kind of all decided, oh, that's it. We gave that a go. And I thought, well, I should do something else. So I went to university to study early childhood education. And that's where, once I decided music wasn't going to be the thing for me, that was the sort of
Oh, really? So you gave up on it, and then
yeah, and that was kind of the start of the path for me. And I met Anthony there, and later Greg, and then we put the first Wiggles album together after eventually. And it was funny. Anthony had a similar thing where he decided because he was in the Cockroaches, who were a pretty big band in the 80s, but he decided he didn't want to tour anymore. He wanted to give that away, and then once the Wiggles took off, he toured more than anyone ever
I was
has.
gonna say,
Really.
yeah. I mean, like that's kind of funny. You say you want to quit something, and then, and yeah, I'm a big believer that you should never really say what you don't want to do because I feel like the universe has an awkward sense of humor where it kind of tends up to push you in that exact direction. So,
Yeah, I think you're right. It's funny how those things work out, and
mm,
I mean, it could have gone either way. And the beauty of the Wiggles when we started is we weren't doing it to make a career of it. We didn't think there was a career in making music for children. There were a few people doing it, but there were no groups
yeah,
doing it. And in fact, we went to see an agent once, and she said, "Oh, you'll never make any money. There's too many of you." Just a lot of that's gone by. And the '70s was also great. And what really spearheaded the whole revolution, I think, it was Countdown. When
yeah,
Countdown started in the early '70s, it really pushed Australian music into being like a proper business model, and bands could go on Countdown, and the whole country would see them. Whereas it was much more regional before that. You could have a hit. A friend of mine was in a band, and they had a #1 hit in Hobart. Like if
oh
you could
yeah,
have a hit in different. So they went and did a Tasmanian tour, and they played Hobart, and the place was packed. And then they played Launceston, which is not that far away, and literally no one came.
that's so
so
weird.
it is really weird when
Yeah.
you think about it. So things like Countdown changed all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very disconnected. So Australia needed to come together, I guess, through some sort of
Yeah.
unity of taste
Yeah,
and
and it was also
collaboration.
that thing too that you had, if you lived in Brisbane or Adelaide or Perth, you had to move to Sydney or Melbourne to be
Mm.
successful, because that's where the music industry was. But now, with streaming and with Triple J being for rock acts at least, you can just stay in the place that you lived in, and there's a scene there. So
Yeah, it's good to be able to connect and work with anyone all over the world. And like this podcast for me started during COVID.
yes, yeah,
But I've made friends that I've only just met this year that we've met face to face, but it's like we feel like we know each other because we can do this online. It's really,
yes,
really
yeah,
nice
yeah,
as well that that music has gone from being a commodity to like a utility. So it's like it's turned into being like electricity and water. It's something that we expect to have for free rather
yeah,
than it
yeah.
being something of value. And it's changed society's perception and that, trying to think of ways that we can make music a commodity again is kind of the big challenge at the moment. So it's an interesting
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Tell,
I think
yeah.
that all that stuff it's kind of meant that it has been devalued a bit. I think people don't take into account how much work goes into
Oh
creating
my
songs
gosh.
and recording.
And
Obviously,
touring
yeah,
and
yeah,
trial and error and
and
learning
all
the
the
instrument.
and all the and then all the boring bits behind the scene. If you're self-managed,
Hmm.
having to book flights and hotels and all that stuff. Yeah,
I'll tell you what, I have so much respect, yeah, for anyone who's out there just doing it because it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's, I mean, I work in film, I do this podcast, I do music, I do a lot of things. Um,
yeah,
but if you're doing it independently, it's just a never ending grind that as someone who's doing it, seeing anyone do it at any time, it's
mm,
just like so much respect for the
yeah,
things you
yeah.
sacrifice. So tell me about the first song that you ever wrote and what your journey as a songwriter is and what you like about it. Yep.
I wrote a terrible song in my teens. I can't even remember what it was about, but I guess like a lot of
Probably about a
writers,
girl.
yeah, yeah, or probably it was probably like because of the times there were lots of songs about how hard life on the road is. I'd never been on the road. I didn't know anything about, and I think
Oh,
I
that's
just put
funny.
myself off for quite a while. And then my bands in the '80s. My friend Mark wrote the songs, and he was so good that I just kind of let him do it.
Yeah.
Well, not let him do it. I just didn't try. So I guess the Wiggles is really when I really started getting much more involved in that. And for instance, the first Dorothy the Dinosaur song, I wrote the lyrics, and then Anthony's brother John had written a song, and we put the lyrics to that song.
Yeah.
And then so collaboration's really been my thing. I've written a few songs by myself, but I tend to write with other people. I like I like collaborating in lots of ways, but songwriting's one of them. And I don't know if it's sort of lack of confidence or I just work better bouncing off people. Well, I don't
I'm
think
the
it's a
same.
lack of confidence now, but yeah. So now my band, the Soul Movers, that I have, Lizzie Mack and I have been writing for close to 10 years together, and we've done 4 albums, and I always say I'm the junior partner. So we have different ways. We have different ways of writing. But earlier on, we did a lot where I'd be just playing. I'd be just with her, and I'd be playing playing some chords and stuff, and just fiddling around. She'd go and she'd say, "What was that? What's that?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know. I was just making it up." And she'd start singing over it, and so we wrote quite a few like that. And then she's got a great sense of melody. She writes lyrics as well, but she'll often just sing into the phone and send me like lots of snippets, and it's like some of it's just like compiling it and working out, where it should go, and is that a verse, is that a chorus, and then and so then we'll get together and go, well, and I'll say, well, I think this bit should go like that, and it's piecing it together in a lot of ways. And I guess I've got much more of an idea of sort of more formal structure, like the structure of a pop song, and so I start with that, and then we'll throw some of that out the window. And she'll sometimes go, I say, we've already got a bridge, we don't need another bridge to the song. And she'll go, yeah, but it's really good. And then I'll just go, oh, okay, well, let's try it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I like that sort of thing. I like being able to do that. And she pushes me too, like, we got to get these songs written. We're doing this record, blah blah blah. So sometimes I'm
a real driver. That's
good. Yeah. So I that works well with me too. So because I'm much more a slow mover, where she wants things straight away. So I think that works well in the Wiggles too. Yeah, well, Anthony and I were like that in the Wiggles too a bit. Of course, Greg and Jeff were contributing too. But Anthony and I had done a lot of assignments at university together, and like those sort of group assignments, and so we were used to working with each other, and he was that, like, all these ideas, and I'm like, no, we have to put them in some sort of order. So I'm more the sort of getting things in order guy, I guess.
That's awesome. I'm probably the opposite, but I'm married to the project manager. So
right. Well,
it is a good balance. Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
You have to have some self-awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But if you can work together, I think it makes a beautiful match, not just in bands, but in life, in work, in corporate world. Have you read the book Surrounded by Idiots?
No, I haven't. No.
Well, it's a classic. I mean, it was #1 last year. So have a listen, read.
Yeah.
But they also have different colored personality types.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Often you'll have 2, but anyway, it essentially gets to the end of the book and it describes all the different personality types. And it says that to be a functioning society or company or group, you need to have all the different personalities because they all add value to any project. So it's interesting.
But it is. Yeah, you do. And sometimes it takes a little while to have, for everyone to have, it's like everyone has to have self-awareness if you have one person who's not. But yeah, fortunately, the people I've worked with, if they didn't have it when we started, they grew to.
How did you find it being a traveling musician and having kids and that lifestyle balance?
Yeah, it was pretty difficult, actually, especially with the way the Wiggles toured. We toured 10 months of the year. The first 5 years or something, we would do 500 shows a year because we do multiple shows every day. Yeah. So I was on the road a lot, and so it was always difficult. We always, when the kids were little, they'd sometimes come out with us, but that got harder when they went to school. And the really big one was when we had success in America, because we were going over there for like six weeks at a time, three times a year. So I was away a lot, and still a few times they came over. In the early days, we'd get just get a car and we'd drive between shows. But the bigger it got, the harder that became because the distances were longer and we were traveling so much more. So, but we did do one tour with a bus because the Wiggles always travel in in buses when we did the big tours,
Yeah.
the tour buses with bunks and lounges and everything, like
Nice.
the rock and roll ones.
Yeah.
And there was one tour we did where the family came and we just got our own bus, and the kids loved that.
Oh, they would have gone nuts for it.
Yeah, my son just stayed on the bus most of the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's such a gimmick, isn't it? Kids love that sort of stuff. My kids would love that. All right, tell me about the Soul Movers, because I mean, I've watched a couple of videos. I saw Dumb Luck, which I wanted to ask you about because it looks like you had a really good holiday. But tell me, like, where did the Soul Movers come from? What was the inspiration for that?
Lizzie, who's my writing partner in the band, was in a relationship with a guy called Dennis Tech, who some of the your older listeners might know, was in Radio Birdman, who were like a really formative sort of band in the punk era in Australia. So they were very, very influential. Anyway, he's a bit older than her, but they were a couple, and he heard her singing in the shower or something, and didn't realize what a great voice she had, and said, "We got to do something." So they actually started the Soul Movers together, and did one album. Then their relationship split up, and so the band split up too. And I heard the album, and I knew Lizzie a little bit, just from, because we're both over 6 foot tall, and and we both would go to gigs, and so I'd see her at a gig and just say, "Hi, there you go, tall person,"
over the heads of everyone else.
Yeah. So when I heard her sing, I just thought, wow, she's got a great voice. And so I got in contact with her. We were friends on Facebook, I think, and just said, do you want to do some music? And so we decided to use the Soul Movers name, and we kind of just went from there. And we did 3 albums for ABC Music because I had a relationship with them through the Wiggles, and just started playing around, and just around Sydney to begin with, and then sort of further afield. So I mean, we don't tour like the Wiggles. We go away for the weekend sometimes. Yeah. So we're in Adelaide a couple of weeks ago, which was our first trip there, but we've done everywhere basically except Northern Territory, I think.
Okay.
So I'm in a position where I could get some publicity because I had a name, and it was a kind of interesting story at first. Yeah, and it's still, the Wiggles thing is still really great because we get quite a lot of young people come to the shows with a band of our age wouldn't normally. And they come to check us out and love the music, and the show's good fun. So it's there's a bit of interaction.
You feel like you've got something to do, and you're willing to give up hot food for that. For a little while. Yes,
exactly. I think if you do music for any length of time, you have to be driven by a passion for it. Really, it's not an easy life.
One piece of advice after all your years of experience in the industry in different areas, what would you say is the one thing that you really wish you had have known earlier that is just such a pivotal piece of advice for people in the industry?
I think that it's two parts. One is fairly obvious, but follow your passion. If you're passionate about it, stick with it. But I think it's also stick to your guns. If you know who you are as an artist, you know yourself better than anyone else does. Sure, take advice, be guided, but if someone's trying to push you into a direction that you don't feel comfortable with and you don't think is you, I would avoid that. One of the things we found with the Wiggles, early on, we had a TV producer who wanted to change what we did, and he said, "Get rid of Dorothy the Dinosaur," and and they didn't want us to speak to camera and stuff. And that's one of the things we knew we did really well. And we actually did a little pilot, and it was so awful. We just said, no, we'd rather not be on TV than go down that route. And it was like a really good decision. And so I guess, just learning that to stick to your guns, and you know yourself better than anyone else does.
And if you could collaborate with one person anywhere in the world, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Well, I'm a huge Beatles nut, so Paul McCartney.
Come on, Paul.
Yeah.
I want to have a chat with him. That would be so cool. I mean, he's done a few podcasts, but
yeah, amazing. Yeah. Well, a friend of mine, Do you know Sean Sennett?
No.
He's a Brisbane guy. He does a podcast. He used to have Time Out magazine.
Okay.
Anyway, Sean's interviewed him a few times, and so much so that Paul remembers him. So the next time he asks him about personal things and stuff.
Oh, that's so nice.
Like Sean got married, and Sean was getting married when he interviewed him one time, and the next time he saw him, he said, "How was the wedding?" So Paul McCartney's asking about my wedding. So yeah,
nice.
I think he's a pretty good guy. So yeah, but I mean, you're like, he's a genius. But I would be so overwhelmed if I did that. So I'd probably be better off with someone else who I didn't idolize quite so much.
I've had that a few times. People are like, I'd love to work with Taylor Swift, but I probably also couldn't speak in her presence.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to share? I'm going to put all the links to your new music and who you are, so people can follow you on socials and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
so people will be able to contact you if they want to. But is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish up?
No, just so I think music's been such a great life for me, and I feel very blessed that I've been able to have this opportunity, and it's a combination of luck, a good product, and determination and passion, I think. And if you've got those things, luck's probably the hardest one, for being in the right place at the right time. But I think it's even if you don't scale the heights that you'd like to, it's just such a great life and a great experience, and I can recommend it to anyone who's thinking of it, who feels that they have the passion.
I love it. Yeah, I've definitely heard someone say, be in the right place at the right time. So if you know where the right place is, be there all the time.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's just showing up, isn't it? Like you're not going to get much done by sitting around at home. And
well, I've also heard people say that sticking around and just sticking at it, like some acts have just were around for years before they found success, and just stick with it. It's fun while I think don't get caught up too much in wanting to make it, in inverted commas, because it's hard to say what making it actually is, and sometimes I think people get to a certain level and it's not as satisfying as they think, and the actual it's a bit of a cliche, but the journey is really important, I think.
I think you got to enjoy the journey. I'm definitely a big lover of just creating. Let's say I'm going through that release cycle where you're promoting it. That's the hardest part for me. I just want to be making and then doing the shows, and then like making more, and then when I'm not doing that, that's when like the depression hits, like that low, like, now what do I do?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I can see that.
Yeah. So it's but I think I know, because I love that part, that I'm just going to be able to do it forever. Like this is my retirement job. So
yeah, me too.
I was medically retired from the corporate world, and so now this is all I'm allowed to do. So, so when people try to say you can't do it, I feel like, oh well, I'm sticking around anyway, like a bad smell. So.
I've got no choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool.
Lovely.
All right. Well, if you're ever in the Gold Coast, let me know. We'll come watch you.
We'll do. Okay.
See ya. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.